Hello everyone and welcome to the Transit Nomad family. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Today I'm going to share my tips on how to prep for leaving USA before traveling the world. I am going through this process right now and I thought it might be helpful if I share some of my experience with you guys today. Before we begin, I do want to ask you guys if you know where I am. If anyone who is watching the video is familiar with the area, please leave a comment below and let me know. I'm not revealing my location on purpose to make it more interesting. We might see a couple of buses here and there for transit lovers, but this is one of the nicest parts of Southern California. Unfortunately, it does not have a lot of public transportation, but it does look nice, so I figured it might be a good location to film this video. Now, I would like to begin by talking a little bit about why you might want to consider leaving the United States. It might be a short-term trip, it might be a long-term trip, it might be a complete move to another country. There could be a lot of different reasons. I just wanted you to know that you're not alone, whether it's the educational system that's bothering you, or the healthcare system, or poor public transportation, or the political environment, or American music, or whatever it is. There could be lots of different reasons for different people, and based on my personal experience traveling and exploring different countries, I can tell with confidence that United States is definitely not the best place to live in the world. It's a great place to run a business. It's a good place to make money. Depending on what your interests are, it might be a great place to hang out, but it might also not be the best place necessarily. It is very expensive. It definitely has a lot of drawbacks, a lot of problems, and we won't talk about it too much in this video, but if you are thinking about moving, you're not alone. It makes sense, and I'm doing the same thing, as you can tell. Also, you might be just curious about exploring different countries, seeing what it's like to live in other cities, in other countries. That is also a valid reason. You don't have to be stuck here. I noticed that many people, including myself, including many of my friends, we always tend to think that where we are is the best place to be, but it's not necessarily the case. For sure, especially here where in the United States. So don't be afraid to open your horizons, and don't be afraid to see and try something different. You might not regret it. Actually, every trip I've taken in the past, no matter how long or how short or where I went, I always enjoyed it a lot, and I was so grateful that I went for it. So hopefully that's going to be your experience too. But in order to make sure you have a good time, it's very important to prepare for it. Depending on how long you're going to be traveling for, there are a few things that you need to consider before leaving. One of those things is, the number one thing is for how long you're going to travel. If this is going to be just for a month or less, I would say you don't need to worry about it too much as far as what prepping you need to do, other than basic things like booking the hotel, booking the airplane tickets, doing that in advance, doing some research in terms of pricing. But generally speaking, you don't have to worry too much about doing too much planning if it's 1 month or less. But if it's over a month, then there are some additional things you need to consider before leaving. Especially if you consider the fact that the way that our system is designed here in the United States is we are expected to have a permanent residential address here, and it's kind of like a big requirement for opening a bank account. You need to have it on file with IRS, Internal Revenue Service, for your taxes, or other establishments, other institutions, other services. It's important to have a residential address, and if you're traveling for 6 months, it might not be wise to keep paying rent for that long. So there are a few things you can do to make it easier on yourself. One of those things, you can ask your roommate or your friend or your family member to check your mail. If you really trust them 100%, if you know they're not going to mess it up, you can ask them to help you out. Another thing you can consider is getting a mail service like Anytime Mailbox. There are many other services as well that are quite similar. They would scan your mail and send you pictures of it. You can view them on their website, and then you can decide what to do with each piece of mail depending on what it is. Some of these companies, they charge extra for destroying it, others charge extra for storing it, others give you a certain number of letters they can scan, and after that you have to pay extra. So it's important to research your options and see which one works better for you. But usually these services, they are not too expensive, starting at around $15 per month. Depending on what you need, it might go up to $20, $30, $40 per month, but still generally not too bad. So I would definitely consider doing something like that if you don't want to bother your friends or annoy your friends with this kind of stuff, or rely on them. It's not like a one-time thing you need to do. You have to check your mail all the time, or they have to check your mail. They have to scan it every day, so it might be annoying for some people to keep doing that over and over again. You also want to set up mail forwarding at United States Postal Service. You can do so on their website. Let them know what your new address is going to be, or what your mailbox address is going to be once you set it up with one of these companies. And it usually it's a pretty straightforward process. It costs like $1 or $2 to set it up, and they would automatically forward all your mail to that address, making things easier. But I would not rely on this 100%, and I would also update your address with each specific service that you're using, with every bank, every credit card company, IRS, immigration, any other companies you're dealing with. I would update your address, give them your mailing address. If it's not your residential address, let them know that this is your mailing address. Ask them to send mail to that specific location, and specifying that this is your mailing address, not your residential address. You can still keep your residential address the same. If you let them know that your residential address is a PO box, they might cancel your account because it's not an actual residential address. So it's better not to change that in most situations. Just keep it the same and just let them know your new mailing address. You can of course set up paperless billing or paperless delivery with a lot of these companies, but it doesn't always work. They would still send you letters. I don't think there's a way to set up paperless notices from IRS. You still have to be prepared to receive mail from them. It might be something important about your tax return, or other things like that. So you should definitely set it up through USPS using their mail forwarding service, and also arrange it with every agency, every service separately. Let them know specifically your mailing address where they should send you the stuff that is important. And hopefully working with one of these companies that can scan your mail for you, so you don't have to worry about missing something important or asking your friends to keep doing that for you. Another thing I want to talk about is your expenses here in the United States. The United States is a very high cost country, and obviously you're gonna have to consider paying or not paying rent while you're gone. If it's a 6-month trip and your rent is $3,000 a month, that is $18,000 just for rent alone that you have to pay, even if you're not living here. If your rent is less, it's going to be less, but still it's usually a pretty considerable amount. And I would suggest thinking about it ahead of time. There are a lot of pros and cons for having roommates. I've had bad situations in the past. You never know what kind of people you're gonna get. Even if they seem trustworthy, you might end up creating yourselves problems. So I would definitely, if I were to consider getting roommates, I would definitely really triple check their background and try to get to know them as much as possible to minimize the chances of them giving you problems when you're gone, because you don't want to deal with that. You want to enjoy your trip. You don't want to deal with problems when your roommates are gone. Also, make sure if you're a renter, make sure it's okay with your landlord. Some landlords do not allow it in the first place, and you don't want to find out. You don't want to get a call from your landlord when you're traveling, letting you know that, oh, I just realized you're having a roommate and it's not part of the deal and you're not supposed to do that. And then you have to deal with that kind of situation, trying to solve it. It might not be an enjoyable experience when you're traveling. So keep that in mind. You can also just go ahead and move out completely, give your landlord a 30-day notice, and put your things into storage. It's a lot cheaper to rent a storage unit than renting an apartment or house. Storage units are usually around $300, $400, $500 per month, depending on the size. I'm talking about large 10 by 30 units that can allow you to store both your vehicle and personal belongings. There are lots of options for under $500 per month, and usually that's a lot less than paying rent for the entire house or entire apartment. Also, if you shop around, you might be able to find a better deal. Right now, I'm about to pay about $300 for a 10 by 25 unit where I can store my vehicles and personal belongings, but also a pretty substantial part of my personal belongings will be stored at my friend's apartment, because I want to store them in a climate controlled environment. This is another thing you need to consider. There are items that get spoiled if it gets too hot or too cold, or there are large temperature fluctuations over time. Things like documents, papers, books, some furniture, some electronics, they might get damaged, and obviously you don't want that to happen. So you should do some research and decide which items you're gonna store in a climate controlled environment that doesn't get too cold or too hot, and which items you're gonna store at an outdoor, not outdoor, but many of these garage like storage units, they don't have air conditioning, and it's kind of like storing it outdoors. It's not quite the same, but it's kind of similar. It gets hot inside, it gets cold, and these temperature fluctuations can cause some damage. So make sure you do your homework, you think it through. But if you're traveling for a long time, it's definitely going to save you lots of money by not having to pay rent during that time. And this is one of those things I did not do during one of my previous trips. I didn't think I was gonna stay that long in Asia. It was my first time going to Asia, but I landed in Taipei. I loved it so much. I started hanging out there, meeting people and exploring the city, and I loved it so much, and I felt so welcome and so comfortable, and I didn't want to go back. I was building real friendships. There were so many things to do and so many places to see and explore, and it was just such a friendly, welcoming environment. And then I went to Korea, I went to Japan, I went back to Taipei, and I ended up coming back to the United States only 7 or 8 months later, when my business, I'm a small business owner, when my business required me to come back, when I really had to do it, then that's when I came back. And this whole time I was paying rent for my house, and it was very expensive, and it added up over 8 months to a very substantial amount. And remember, you're paying for something that you're not even using. It's just sitting there empty. So of course, if I had known that it's gonna be such a long trip ahead of time, maybe I would have prepared differently. But also, I'm one of those people that are very careful about having roommates, and I don't know if I would go for that anyway. So this time I'm actually just moving out, so I don't have to deal with roommates. It is a lot of work to move out and then move back in, but I want to travel for a long time, around 6 months, and I don't want to just keep paying rent every month if I'm not living there. Regardless of the income level, it's just not something that feels like a wise thing to do. Now let me look at my cheat sheet here with my notes, because there were a couple of more things that I wanted to discuss. So I mentioned that it might be a good idea to have a roommate instead of moving out. That would be up to you. It's going to be your personal choice. I also wanted to mention that it's good to avoid any kind of plans or commitments or things that might force you to come back early, which is why I highly recommend preparing for this kind of journey ahead of time and thinking everything through, possibly using AI tools like ChatGPT to help you organize your thoughts, your plans, any kind of possible future scenarios that might create problems, because you don't want to deal with that when you're traveling. You want to make sure that your trip is smooth and enjoyable, and most likely you're gonna be having so much fun that you're gonna forget about your life in the United States, hopefully. And in order for that to happen, you should do this kind of homework ahead of time. And that brings me to the next point, which is your driver's license and your car registration. If you have one, you should not only update your address, but also make sure that your registration is not going to expire when you're gone, and then you get a notice and then you don't get it because you didn't set up the address, and then your car is out of registration, and the next thing you know is you come back and you get pulled over and you have to pay a big fine, or your car gets towed or something like that. Actually, even the storage companies, they require for you to maintain current registration for your vehicle. So make sure to keep that in mind and think this through ahead of time. Any kind of subscriptions or documents, registrations, renewals, things like that, you need to either do it ahead of time or prepare reminders to make sure you can do that when you are away in another country. You can prepare yourself to do it online or do it ahead of time by mail. But these are the things you should really consider before leaving. And you might tell yourself, like, why would I travel for such a long time? It seems like it's so much pain in the neck to prepare for it. But I'm telling you, it's really worth it to go for a long trip. Of course, it's better to go for 1 month than not going at all. But if you go for 6 months or 12 months or even a couple of years, you have so much more time to explore and see different places, visit different cities, different countries. Each one would have something unique to offer. You'll be able to discover so much from food to architecture to music to building friendships and connections. You might end up getting a job over there or starting a new business. You never know. So the more time you have to open your horizons, the better. So it is a lot of work, but it's still worth it, and I highly recommend it, going for as long as you can. I already mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's good to book your airplane tickets, your hotels ahead of time. This is especially important if you're going to Western Europe, because it's kind of popular, maybe even a little bit overrated. Everybody in the world wants to go to Paris or Italy, and it's always booked up, and it's always more expensive when you go last minute, or you have very limited options when you go last minute. So I highly recommend researching where you're going. Countries like Vietnam, for example, they do not require for you to plan ahead of time. It's not necessary. Countries that are less popular or less in demand, you can just show up and just do what you feel like doing. Also, this is the case about Eastern Europe. If you want to go to Bucharest or Sofia, where I'm heading right now, you don't necessarily have to have a reservation. You can stay longer, you can stay shorter, depending on whether you like it or not and what it feels like. So you don't have to worry about that too much. But if you're going to countries like England or France or Italy or Germany, where it's very, very popular and it's in high demand and lots of people from all over the world are heading over there, it's good to prepare ahead of time, knowing exactly how long you're gonna stay, where you're gonna stay, which train you're gonna take from one city to the next, at what time. Book it ahead of time. It can be a very, very substantial difference in terms of cost and availability. Even taking a train from one city to another city in Italy or Switzerland or France, the price can quadruple, literally quadruple, for booking in the last minute. Sometimes you might end up paying even more. So it's better to just prepare ahead of time. I know it kind of sucks, but that's what it is in Western Europe. And that is another thing I wanted to mention. Western Europe is not necessarily better than Eastern Europe. Just because everybody wants to go to France, it doesn't mean that it's the best country to visit in the world. It really, it's a cool place to explore. I'm not talking bad things about France, but is it really better than visiting Poland? Is it better than visiting Hungary or Czech Republic? Is it better, really? I wouldn't say so. I had so much fun in Eastern Europe, in Central Europe. I enjoyed some cities like Vienna way more than Paris, and some cities like Warsaw or Krakow in Poland, they are way cheaper and just as fun as Paris or other cities that are so popular in Western Europe. So I wouldn't really be crazy about Western Europe. You can just skip it or leave it for another time, unless you really want to pay extra for everything and book everything ahead of time and do a lot of pre-planning ahead of time. Otherwise, you can go to countries that are less overrated. And this is also the case with Asia. Everybody is crazy about Japan. Everybody wants to go to Japan, but in reality, is Japan better than Korea? Is it more fun to spend time in Tokyo than in Seoul? Does it have more to offer? Well, not really. Seoul is just as fun, if not more fun. And arguably it can be even more welcoming, the environment for tourists and visitors, and it can be less expensive and more comfortable. And countries like Taiwan are totally underrated because it's very developed. They are very welcoming for tourists, and it's more affordable, and there are so many things to do and see. But for some reason, most people, they don't think about Taipei when they think about traveling to Asia. So try not to get stuck and open your mind to exploring other places, other countries. You don't necessarily have to focus on the ones that everyone is talking about, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a better time there than somewhere else. And it's all about being happy and enjoying and having a great time. So keep that in mind. And on this note, if you have any additional questions, I want to invite you to contact me through buymeacoffee.com/transitnomad. I do life coaching, and I do trip planning and personal consulting and business consulting. I am a business owner in the United States. I'm also trying to build this channel, this project Transit Nomad, to be able to work more remotely. I already work remotely with my current business, but I also want to do it even more. So feel free to contact me. It would help me out, and hopefully I can help you out. I've traveled to lots of different countries and cities multiple times, being in Asia, in Europe, and the United States. And I just keep traveling most of the time and keep exploring, keep discovering new things, while also running my business full-time. It's based in California, but I do it from all over the world. So if you think I might be helpful to you with some ideas or planning or strategies, please feel free to reach out through buymeacoffee.com/transitnomad. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you next time. Bye-bye.